Yes, and so I'm gonna just launch into the roundtable. Very exciting. So the format is as follows. I'm going to ask everyone one question. The first question everyone will answer in 7 minutes, and I've been instructed to time, so I have a timer. So I'm very sorry, I'm not good at timing people, but it has to happen. And then the second question I will ask, and then we have about 5 minutes, and then 30 minutes for open question and answers and dialogue. Okay? Let's get started. Everyone have some coffee, caffeine, tea. Excellent. So my first question is, how do you engage with the themes of death and migration in your work? And Matthew.
So I come up here, I guess.
Yes.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Well, I guess...
The microphone, please.
Yeah. So I guess in my artistic practice, to kind of contextualize a little bit about my work, I'm sort of coming at this question from a broader sense, or these questions from a broader sense, and as a interdisciplinary artist focusing on photography and moving image and sound, my work is really questioning narratives of place and the relationship.
Sorry, can you introduce yourself?
People sorry, yeah. Well, Aaron, I thought it did that, but yeah.
We missed it, but please.
Okay, yeah, so I'm Matthew Gurnt. I'm an artist and educator here at IAU, ACM, and I teach practice-based courses as well as art history courses. And I'm an artist who works, an interdisciplinary artist who works between photography, film, and moving image, digital video and film as well, but also sound. And my work is sort of rooted in this idea of narratives of place and the landscape, and thinking about the landscape as a container of historical and environmental and political and social issues. And so focusing on the Mediterranean, migration is very much linked with that. And so quickly, because we're probably running out of time already. Okay, we're good? Okay. 7 minutes is quite fast. So I'll just talk a little bit about a project that I started in 2021, and it's kind of taken many forms, and it's a film work that is a collaborative film piece that I made with Ali Diawara, who we worked together on this I guess kind of documentary style film work. And it is about this idea of movement and how the movement and the concept of movement relates to the Mediterranean. And so there's Ali's giving his testimony to crossing borders and then eventually coming from Mauritania and then eventually arriving in Marseille. And this voiceover narration is paired with images of movement in and around Marseille. And the work, it doesn't, I guess, to go to Aaron's question, it doesn't address death in a direct sense. However, the narration and as journey is sort of moving through these, kind of state of being in this sort of state of exception and these kind of traveling through these death zones and thinking about the kind of necropolitical geography of the Mediterranean, it touches on death in that sense. It also is a film that's trying to, challenge or question the conventions and kind of general representations of migrants as well. So rather than kind of focusing on a kind of large perspective, we have a really intimate story of someone's journey. And then, the use of the voiceover narration is very important as well, because then it kind of addresses this other important question of representation. And so the idea of having this voiceover narration is to sort of move beyond representation. And I think the second part of the question is the sort of challenges that come along with that and how one navigates that. And obviously, there's I think the
Speak to the mic.
Sorry, yeah. Obviously, with the picking up the camera, and I know we talked a lot about this yesterday as well. But picking up the camera and that relationship between being behind the camera and filming is connected to a history and certain power dynamics. So the way in which this film tries to address that or unpack that is by taking over the position of this voiceover narration and by questioning these general representations of migration in the Mediterranean. So that was sort of my approach to this project, and I guess that's all I have to say. I think I have a little bit more time.
You
but,
do, yeah.
Okay, but it's okay if I finish a little early. Pass it on to Catherine. So thank you very much.
Hello, can you hear me? I'm speaking in the microphone. Thank you. Hello, so I don't know how many of you were here yesterday, and I'm sorry for those that were, because I'm going to repeat myself. I'm Hara, or Hara, something like this, whatever you can say. I'm from Greece and Cyprus, and I started my studies by doing fine art and printmaking in England. While doing printmaking and while being in this world of contemporary art, I felt a bit disconnected to what I consider the real world, even though this is a bit abstract what that means. But anyway, so then I started more and more doing photography, and I did a master's in photojournalism in London College of Communication. And what I've been trying to do, my work has evolved through time, and depending on the projects I work on, I use different forms, but what I essentially try to do is to combine different visual languages and narrative forms together. So yes, yesterday we projected a film that I did recently. If it's okay, I'm sorry for those that saw it, but I will show you the trailer and then I'll continue talking about it.
Το Aquarius ταξίδευε στη Μεσόγειο, προσφέροντας βοήθεια σε ανθρώπους που κινδύνευαν να χαθούν στη θάλασσα. Πάνω σε αυτό το καράβι γνώρισα τον παπά σου. Πώς να διηγηθώ αυτή την ιστορία μέσα από εικόνες. Πώς να σου την πω, Νικόλα μου.
So this film was done as a. Shall I? Okay, thank you. So this film was done after a trip I did as a photographer with the SOS Méditerranée, a humanitarian organization who works in search and rescue in the central Mediterranean. And my role there was to be a photographer, but then I wanted to use the footage I had in order to say another story and not just have these photographs that were used for social media and for the news. And so when I think of your question, like about death and migration, it's a bit like I don't consider I am an artist about that works on death or migration, but I guess what's for me interesting is people and stories of humans, and what we all have in common, and what we all in the elements between what is common to all of us and what is individual, and how all this fits in a more global history and story about human life and society and the present and the past, and so I don't know if you can show maybe the other pictures. So just to give another backstage to this film, before doing this work in SOS Méditerranée, an important work that I did, and it took many years, is so I was studying in England photojournalism, and in Greece the economic crisis started, so I would go very often to Greece and photograph the demonstrations, and then with my pictures I would print them in photocopies in black and white and try to do collages. So it's again this concept of trying to take a story based on something that I lived, and try to find different ways of narrate this story. So this work, which took many different forms. This was one huge like collage, a poster that I did, and I showed it in a museum in Belgium next to medieval tapestries. So it was about like this dialogue between an old tapestry that showed basically a history of the world as they wanted to show in this huge monumental work. Next to it was a black and white photocopies and collages of this situation in Greece, the way I saw it. Okay, I will show the. Can I show? Okay, and just quickly in the same exhibition around this big collage that I did, there was two different things I had found at the sea. On the left, you can maybe see it's pieces of wood that are floating in the sea and that have been carved from the waves, and it's basically the remains of a boat or of something man-made that the sea has transformed. And I try to do the same thing, but with papers. So like thinking about what is left after this excess of information about today. So I have no more time, but I'll come back to it after. Thank you.
Yes, I tend to work rather intuitively, but it's really, yeah, I heard both of you, and it's one of my goals is to try to bridge territories in order, to perhaps create identification and empathy. And so in my films, I try to involve myself as a Western, so that Western viewers can identify through me, in order to create this kind of triangular relationship between the viewers, the exiles, and myself. And I also try to talk, to address the very topic of the visual representations of contemporary migrations. Yes, for example, in artworks, I've been working recently with maps, maritime maps, topography. Yes, so I want my work to also offer a reflection on these mainstream representations. And I try to challenge myself, avoiding, so it's a personal challenge, avoiding rubber boats, life jackets, and survival blankets. So yeah, I've been working with ceramics, video installation, recently a cyanotype, mask drawing. And I like to juxtapose discarded material. But yeah, we have two pictures, so I couldn't show. And so for this to your question, and for today, I will focus on two films that I am developing. So the first one, you heard about it in 22, and then it was on pause, and at the moment I am full-time on it. No, that's the other one, yeah. Well, it's a joke, me, it's a joke, but it's because since they are developing, I cannot show papers. So it's a Parisian HR executive and a Senegalese musician. They are both named Gomis, and they separately pursue the origin of their shared surname to escape somehow their inferior backgrounds. And only to discover that their mysterious connection reveals a shared colonial trauma. So I will pitch it in May in Stockholm. I live in Stockholm. And I am script doctoring at the moment to finish in December. And the other projects, so this one is a documentary that includes contemporary dance, as you can see on this work. It's produced by a Swedish-French company. And so, the logline would be when a young Senegalese filmmaker, Doudou Diop, dies attempting to film a pirogue crossing from Saint-Louis, Senegal to the Canary Islands. A French filmmaker attempts to complete his unfinished film, Dash Gal. So my film is, Defar film, it's to build, to make a film in Wolof, and Doudou's job film was to build the pirogue. And we tried to do it through collaborative workshops with young artists from Saint-Louis and from the Calais region. So yes, I'm concerned with creating identification for viewers from both continents. Yes, so we are, for this reason, we are in contact with Senegalese production company, and for this film I work with Mamadou Selou Diallo, who is a script doctor and filmmaker. Really helpful. Yes, and to finish, I don't know. Oh, great. I wanted to talk about the economic model for funding these films. Since I am working on these disappearances that leave no trace, that are untold in both countries of departures and destination, it's very difficult to fit to any existing genre. because these appearances are shapeless. And I believe that the film form needs to be invented, not because I want to be fancy, but because I think it's the subject by itself that needs this creation. And so this also implies to be creative in terms of funding. So at the moment we are expecting answers from artist research. What did I wrote? Artistic research grants. Because it's not a documentary in which you are immersed in one environment. Since I am co-creating with people, it's also somehow staged, but then it's so it needs to be the model needs to be invented. Okay. Now I don't know. I can.
Thank you.
I quickly introduce myself. My name is Katrin Ströbel. That sounds not very French. I'm a German artist based in Marseille. I'm a visual artist, working on a lot of different themes, but also a lot on let's say, geopolitical questions and the question how gender politics and geopolitics are related. I have an individual practice, but I've been also working with my partner, who's a Moroccan artist, on a project since 2013. And I'll show some images of this collaborative project and another one of my own practice. Yeah, and I'm based, as I said, mainly here in Marseille, but I'm going back and forth between France, Morocco, and Germany. So being an artist and a white European woman with a Bordeaux passport, crossing constantly borders without any problems. Automatically the questions of border regimes, migration, and unfortunately also in a second stance death are almost unavoidable. So maybe I directly start with the first image. As I said, I'm working on a project since about, now it's 12 years, Frontier Fluid, so fluid boundaries, one could say, or translate. The project is about borders that define the spaces that we are allowed to use or not to use. The borders are not always where we might expect them, and the borders that we were interested in this project are, of course, very often geographic or political or historical, but also cultural, mental, or physical or psychological borders. So the idea was also to, maybe to open up the idea of what are the obstacles that keep us away from doing or moving to certain other spaces or states of being. As I said, it's a 12-year-long project, so I could talk about it the whole day. The main, let's say, the base of the project is a big video archive with shared stories and testimonies, and I decided not to show them today. I just brought you 2 other images from the project in order to give you an idea what kind of forms it can take. Basically, it's a project that started in the Mediterranean area, but it also moved to other spaces and places, and it continues to grow and to develop with each location. These locations are sometimes maybe also cities or museums, but usually it's somewhere in the middle of nowhere at at a place that we might find interesting and we want to explore or to try to understand better. And it's also very often places that are far away from what we could call the art world or something like that. So maybe just quickly. So it's the video archive leads also to other forms of installations, of photographies, drawings, and so on. And I just quickly wanted to show you an example at an exhibition where we that was an exhibition where we were invited to kind of dialogue with other works. And we chose, you can't see it, you have to believe me, it's a small aquarelle by Auguste Macke from Tunis, so from the early 20th century. So one of the first travels that he and his expressionist artist friends did to the Maghreb areas, and this kind of drapeau, how you say, flag, is a work by us, which looks first of all, of course, like a more or less abstract calligraphy, and of course a lot of, if you can't read it, you can imagine a lot of things. You can also reflect a lot of stereotypes and expectations, what you think that might be written on it, and so on. So we are also trying to play or trying to work a lot with the ideas of this otherness that we have all around the Mediterranean area. In this case, it's a flag which has written on it exile or death, so Roba ou la Mood. Which is also, as you might know, a kind of, well, slogan is the wrong word, but it's something that is a lot said and a lot of microphone, a lot of said when people head off from the Maghreb area, from Senegal, to the Canarian Islands or to the south of Spain. And maybe the next one. Maybe I will not. I think I'll show you them now because I think we'll maybe come back later when we'll talk about the questions of responsibility and again of visibility, what to show and what not. And I think that's also something that we will, that will stay a kind of red thread in our upcoming discussion after the presentations. So this work is called Géographie, so geographies. And as you can maybe see on the left side, you see it's a kind of diptych, a written a piece of a passport that is torn apart, and again a found piece of paper where someone has written geography, geographia in Arab. Is this the time sign?
It is the time.
Okay. So maybe just show the last image and then we can, it has nothing to do with the other ones. If somebody wants to know what it is, we can talk about it later. Thank you very much.
Good morning. I have a script as I'm jet lagged and not using the microphone properly. I will do my best. My name is Freya Powell. I am Assistant Professor of Contemporary Art Practice at Parsons, the New School in New York City. I teach in the BFA photography program, which my students find hilarious because my practice is very much at the moment about negating the image. So they think I'm very confusing. So I talked at length yesterday about my work, so apologies for the repeat introduction. But as I have said, I create sound installations and performances working with an ensemble of actors and singers, a choral director, and when we're live, we use a costume designer as well. The ensemble is called a dissonant chorus, and my role is essentially as a researcher, a writer, and a kind of creative director. The projects are driven by my own sense of complicity in contemporary tragedies that are unfolding, many of which we learn about through social and mass media, but feel very distanced from both physically, psychologically, and emotionally. I spoke yesterday about the banality of images through the oversaturation and overexposure, and this feeding a sense of denial is a denial of our place as a vicarious witness, denial of our own agency to act, and denial of our own complicity. You can actually put the first slide on. Thank you. Each of the projects, elegiac in nature, address grief and ambiguous loss as a result of current tragedies or catastrophes, many of which have been centered around death and migration. Through these works, I use the voice to tap into shared experiences or emotions. We've all experienced grief, we've lost someone, and we've all experienced ambiguous loss as a result of living through the COVID-19 pandemic. With these projects, I aim, through the relational event of the voice, to break down our denial and access our sense of complicity in what is happening. I want the audience to be immersed in the voices, immersed in the narratives, immersed in the emotions. I'm creating a sense of interconnectedness through intentional listening. So the images, I'm showing images, which I don't normally do in these situations, but given here we are. This is from a project called Only Remains Remain. So within working with this ensemble, we have created 3 projects that directly address death and migration, or issues of death and migration. So this is Only Remains Remain. It was a 15-person immersive performance that uses the characters of the Greek tragedy Antigone to tell the story of a mass grave in Texas called Sacred Heart Cemetery. Some of you are probably familiar. The small county-run graveyard housed the remains of hundreds of unidentified migrants who died while in search of a better life. The county buried these individuals, whose bodies were found in nearby farms without following traditional burial standards, in mass graves with no names. In 2013, forensic anthropologist Dr. Laurie Baker started to exhume the remains and ascertain through DNA testing the identities of the deceased. Baker and her team worked tirelessly to return the bodies to their families and offer a sense of closure, echoing the heroic Antigone, defying the state to honorably bury her brother. The second piece, Spaces of Exception, was an immersive sound installation commissioned by Thanatic Ethics for a conference in Hong Kong last year. The piece, while still rooted in the voice, speaks to ambiguous loss experienced as a result of prevention through deterrence, which is the border policy in the US, but enacted most specifically on the southern border with Mexico. Through speech and song, the piece plays sonically with ideas of echo and mirage, orally exploring the experience of ambiguous loss and ideas of public grievability concerning the lives lost in the hostile terrain of the desert. The third piece I spoke to yesterday was A Maritime Haunting, which you heard parts of, is also an immersive sound installation and was commissioned by Duke Arts at Duke University. It uses the voice to, again, convey ambiguous loss. You see the through line happening here, resulting from border policies in the Mediterranean Sea. Through speech and song, it incorporates elements of the sea, the tides, surges, depicting the sea as a passageway, a grave, and in the context of migration, a space of exception. For each of these projects, I'm considering immersivity as a means to engage the audience. With Only Remains Remain, it's a little hard to tell from this picture, but it was almost like a ripple or like concentric circles. So at the very center, there were 4 singers, around which sat sort of like an inner core of audience. Then there were space for the other 11 performers, and at times all 15 performers, and then again, audience on the outside. So you had the opportunity, if you were willing to sit inside, to be completely immersed in the sound. It would be coming from all sides of you. Sorry, I've lost my sense of space in this talk. The actors in this piece communicated the tragedy of Sacred Heart Cemetery and the forensic anthropologists who worked to exhume the remains. in the final, one of the final parts of the piece, the Ode to Fate, near the end, there's a moment when the actors break the fourth wall, and in unison, all 15 performers say, "We are all human, we are all fallible, we are all grievable," and then they pause. There's like poses throughout the piece, and they lock eyes with an individual in the audience and say, "Therefore, we are all complicit." And this is part of my sort of idea of bringing complicity, like bringing ideas of complicity to the audience in a very kind of direct way. So even when I'm not working with live performers, I recreate the circular structure. What happened in Hong Kong, what happened at Duke University, it was reduced to 6 performers, so there are 4 singers and 2 actors, and they're represented by a single speaker. So each speaker carries one voice. So as you enter the space where it's being showed, you can walk around the periphery, you can go to an individual speaker and hear one person's voice, or you can sit in the center and be kind of like immersed in the chorus. Time. Perfect. I'm done. Oh, that's not.
Thank you all very much. It's your work is powerful and moving, and I'm very inspired by how you are telling these incredibly important stories and these narratives, and you're focusing on connection and what brings us all together, and how we can all be collectively responsible and a part of what's happening. So my next question is, what role do political, ethical, or cultural contexts play in shaping the work that you do, and how can your art open spaces for dialogue and that collective responsibility? There's no order, so anyone who wants to chime in can go first.
Can you repeat the question loudly with the microphone next to your mouth, please, so the students can take note of it?
Sure. Is it
on?
Is this better?
No.
Okay. I'll just speak louder. It's okay. No, it's on. It's on. Is that one?
Try it.
Oh, is this better? Okay, that's better. So I'm wondering, when they're creating works, how do they consider political, ethical, or cultural context when they're creating the films and the exhibitions? And how can that space, that artistic space, open up dialogue with people who are maybe not necessarily already engaged in what's happening, to have people reflect on the collective responsibility of what's happening in our world today? Just a simple question, just a little Friday morning opener for you. Any thoughts?
So I think that we are. Oh no!
Oh.
Yes. It's a bit intimidating to come here because anyway, but hello. So I think that we have all kind of answered a little bit in our own ways about what you are asking now, and I think it's again a very individual approach. I don't think that artists are like prophets that are here to teach to anybody anything, but if they can raise questions and move people through the work, it's great. But I think I think, for example, in my personal work, every project raises its own questions about ethical, political, like how do you approach it? What is your relationship with the story you're trying to deal, or the people that are affected by it? And then in a second time, how do you present it, to whom? These questions are there from the beginning to end, and sometimes it's difficult to just put bullet points and say, okay, this is the ethical approach, this is the political approach. It's all, I think, for me, connected. I'll just give the example for my film, and it's again what I said yesterday. I wanted to say the story of the people I had met in the middle of the sea, all these individuals that had very different stories and that ended up risking their lives in order to cross the Mediterranean. Sometimes it was by choice, sometimes it was because they had no choice, very different stories. The way I found ethically and politically I was more okay in order to speak about others was to speak about myself and say which was my perspective and try to put this into context as well. Also thinking, it's different for different art forms, but I was there as a photographer, and there's all this dynamic of holding the camera, being behind the camera. I was just thinking that now that, when you take the picture of somebody, you say you shoot him, and it's there's maybe something there about the power relationship and all of that. For example, the other project I showed now, the one in Greece and the crisis, there the questions were more about not representing one stories of individuals, but of a social body and a political situation, which it was still, we were all part of it, so it was very difficult to have a distance and to understand and to contextualize it. But I was, again, not trying to give answers, but try to play with this, the spectacle of the crisis and the spectacle of what the media is portraying. And so I was working with images, with sounds, with, I didn't put it here, but I tried, first I started doing these very complex collages, and then I started, erasing the background and just having little figures that you couldn't really identify who it was, and just having a stop motion videos, and then bringing sounds and really seeing how different elements create different stories and what questions are come out from this. Voila.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm going to piggyback off of what Hara is saying a little bit here, but I spoke about the role of complicity in the work, and I think that is my sort of my entry point, my individual way of grappling with these topics, and part of this idea of we're all here for a very specific reason. We all have concerns about death and migration. When artists are able to create works in public spaces, I create work both in galleries and museums, non-traditional spaces, and universities, it's an opportunity to have a conversation with a larger audience. And it's an audience who's there seeking to learn through their senses. So it's a different way of understanding a topic. It's not sitting down and reading or listening to a news story. It is people who are interested in engaging in a bodily experience of understanding something. There's also, when I do projects, when given the opportunity, I like to do public programming as well. For the piece that I had showed before, Only Remains Remain, we had a panel discussion alongside it, and part of that project, so the project started in 2019 and then was put on pause because of the pandemic. The whole of New York City shut down, as I'm sure many of you experienced where you were. So when we were able to actually redo it, you can see all the performers, everyone was wearing masks. It was in 2021. So everyone had just lived through the experience of the pandemic. Everyone had just lived through versions of grief. Everyone had experienced ambiguous loss. So for the panel discussion, which Alexandra was part of, we had a psychoanalyst, Jameson Webster, who was worked doing palliative care during the pandemic at a hospital in Brooklyn. Alexandra and her collaborator, Benjamin Nienas, who have written a lot about mourning and migration, specifically on Sacred Heart Cemetery, which was part of the reason for them being part of the panel. And then Cynthia Briones, who's an artist and sort of community organizer who'd been working with the migrant community in Queens to lobby the city to get I forget what it's called, but funding for migrant workers who had lost money during the shutdown of the city. So it's moments like this where it's able to take the work from this perhaps more like abstract space into something tangible. So that conversation was connecting the experience of ambiguous losses relating to Sacred Heart Cemetery and connecting it directly to the New York City experience of ambiguous loss during COVID-19 and directly relating it to the migrant community in Queens.
Thank you.
Thank you. Impossible question. Une tentative de réponse. First of all, I think as an artist, I see myself as an artist that is part of the society, and I really try to establish or to do work that is anchored in the society and not like a reflective position outside who tries to understand with a distance what is going on. So I really, to quote Donna Haraway, I really think I really would like to be and to stay with and in the trouble. But of course, well, in that sense, I could say my position as an artist, I see myself maybe in a way as a seismographic tool that tries to kind of to record and to understand the shakings and the shiverings of our society. But there's a lot of parameters, and there's like, of course, which is around us, but it is also what I bring into this situation. So I've been talking about the issues that we are addressing in our project, but of course it's already completely different if my Moroccan partner works on this issue, or if I do it, or if we do it together. And so I think for me as an artist it's really very important also to think about the parameters that shape my position. And I mean, I'm here today, well, the list is endless, but I'm here as a German with a public-funded academic education. I'm here as somebody coming from a country that has the heritage of the Shoah and the colonial history that has not been correctly worked on at all. I live in Marseille. Marseille was occupied by the Nazis. I have a German passport, which means that I'm the passport of the second biggest weapon deliverer to Israel. My taxes pay Frontex. So that's just a list I made while I was listening to you. I have the passport issued by a country that reinstalled border controls between, amongst others, France and Germany, and so on and so on. So I cannot do work without, by ignoring all these things. And so in that sense, of course, everything, well, as I mean, you said, I don't think that I have to be I don't think and I can't be a prophet or whatever or propose solutions. but at least I can start to do my homework. So that's what I try to do, and to understand how all these parameters shape my position and my responsibilities as an artist. And within that context, I try to offer and to work on, to offer to create spaces, small spaces, maybe even spaces that get smaller these days, as much as I can. But that's a very modest contribution, and I think another really important issue, at least for me as a teacher and an artist who worked a lot also with public institutions, that's an educator that worked in France and in Morocco and in the States and really internationally also, is the question is not only, I will not only have to ask myself this question as an artist in my production, but also as an artist and an educator that works with institutions, as an artist or as an educator. So the landscape, the academic and the artistic landscape has been so much shifting in the last years, in the last, let's say 2 years. So the public space, the public institutions, the museums, the universities, I think they are all not in the same situation where they were like 3, 4, 5 years ago. And so, I don't know, we'll see what is going to happen, and we'll see how we'll be able to defend also these spaces, and if we will be able to defend them. And again, maybe it's again really a lot of question marks, no answers. But so again, in terms of homework, I think on my position, the least that I should do or try to do is to be solidarity, to have to show solidarity and support to artists, migrant people, cultural workers that are in a much more fragile position than I are. But so that's not much, but that's how I would describe the situation today. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Just basically building off of what everyone has said and talked about already. I think, again, this idea of the artist as creating something and then kind of showing it to society is, and kind of revealing something about society is not really how I approach my practice. And with this question, I think a lot of these, through the practice, you start to deal with these issues, and the process is kind of entangled with all of these issues as well. So, of course, there's this the personal background and histories that we're all bringing and that we all carry, and when we enter into a space, we have, and the privileges and so forth, as Catherine said about me, for example, as an American and living in France and living in Marseille and so forth. I think it's in the work, at least, it's this small contribution to create a space for reflection and to allow the work to create a contemplative space. In my work in particular, or in this film piece in particular, the first half of the film, there's no dialogue. It's just moving image and sound, and so that is as a way that I hope can create some sort of space for contemplation, and then that can perhaps generate a dialogue afterwards. And I think again, as an artist, our role is to try and create these spaces for dialogue, and so that's how I approach the projects that I'm in and in my practice. I just wanted to add that, and basically following what everyone else said, I think was said quite nicely. So yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. So it's a bit complex question, so I decided I will break into pieces for each of the two films that I'm developing. So to start with the documentary, Des Phares Films. So politically, as we said, I'm confronting with this void of representation, so the systemic erasure of death at maritime borders, and these disappearances, as we know, are only addressed through repression and denial by the states. And so my choice to center the film on creative process is a way to, rather than a direct testimony, I see it as a political response, because I try to avoid an extractive logic of documenting migrant suffering for consumption, but instead try to ask what collective creation can do to face institutional violence. Ethically, yes, like everyone, I am navigating a complex position. I am not Senegalese. I didn't know do the job. And and of course no one could see the Aix-en-Provence unfinished film. I am only having a synopsis of this film and some dialogues that were given to me by his brother. And this raises urgent question about appropriation and who has the right to tell whose story. So yes, this is why I was very moved by your film yesterday. For now, I have decided to make this tension visible in the film, so to question my legitimacy in the film, because I believe that these collaborative workshops with young people from Saint-Louis and Hauts-de-France can in some sense be the ethical framework of the film, rather than speaking about or for maybe the collective creative work and create conditions for speaking with. Third, culturally, so my work is about the collective imaginary of migration, all the images, the myth, the belief that shape how we understand departure, absence, and return. And in the film, I try to make resonate funeral dances in West Africa with some memorial practices in Calais. Also try to work, I want to work in the editing between the architectural traces of colonialism linking Saint-Louis and Lille. They are actually twin cities. And I believe that these cultural layers aren't a backdrop, but maybe an active material that can connect territories in the narrative and, as I said, later in the editing. And the choice of dance, it's a response to its role across culture to avoid as much as possible French colonial language, and as a way to embody the missing body. So in the end, what connects these three contexts is the question, how do we create without reinforcing the very structure of violence and erasure that we're trying to address? Maybe a word about the fiction, the last name. So the film emerges, so about political context, the film emerges from observing how European corporate outsourcing creates literal displacement. One of the characters of the film is forced to migrate irregularly for survival. And in the film, the French character uses NGOs preventing maritime death for funding corporate social responsibility. And it mirrors how corporate decisions treat human displacement as an acceptable externality. I want to show how migration isn't just about individuals' choices, but about this structural violence, in which, in the film, where some people's careers opportunity depends on others' desperation. About the ethics, so the surname Gomis becomes a lens for examining how colonialism displaces people from their own identities. I said in 22, for those who are here, the origin of my surname. just discovered recently. Whether it was through forced religious conversion and expulsions, and both characters seek the origin of this surname, but for opposite reasons, rooted in class and caste hierarchies, which are themselves products of colonial systems. So in the film, the ethical questions becomes who owns displaced identity, and can you reclaim what was stolen without romanticizing or appropriating real suffering? About cultural context, I'm interested in how displacement creates cultures of performance. The French character is a class defector, transfuge de classe, and the Senegalese protagonist performs griot legitimacy to transcend its caste exclusion, because he's not in the appropriate caste. Both are internally exiled from their authentic self, and both characters live in society where their origin defines themselves, making them believe that they must perform perfection rather than accepting themselves as they are. Okay? Is it time? And about the question of responsibility?
Just
I believe that this dialogue is possible if films are not political pamphlets. And I also believe that we must be careful about this politics of aesthetics. I was invited to a roundtable by Will Allen, maybe some of you know him, and it was the title of the roundtable, Politics of Aesthetics. And so to respect this, I think we have to be careful about the choice of photographic and cinematographic devices. Are there some devices or visual processes that should not be used for ethical/moral reason to portray refugees in distress? So then, lecture, but there is all this debate that was raised in 1962 by Jacques Rivette about the film Capot, the tracking shots. I don't know if we have time about that. Yeah, okay. And another example is the overuse of drone images in Human Flow by Ai Weiwei. Okay, that's all.
Thank you. There's so much to discuss. It was a very big question. But now I would like to open it up to the audience for any questions for the artists and educators. Yes.
Thank you, everybody. It was really, really interesting. Everybody had to contribute. Can you get better? I've been struggling with this for a while now, but and yesterday we mentioned the death of Walter Benjamin and the route across the Pyrenees. But of course, Walter Benjamin left behind an amazing body of work that has been looked at, discussed endlessly since his death, not least on photography and the mass reproduction of art and photography. And it seems that that is as contemporary and fresh now as in his observations as it ever was. But it led me to rereading Susan Sontag on regarding the pain of others, and I think you've all really talked about her work without mentioning her work there and again. That was in 2003, but seems a really compelling book to look at again. But I say that because every day as a viewer, you're made as I'm a recipient of what you make and what we see, is how I can look at things and how I know the way that I look at things is honest with myself. So we see a lot of atrocity, real atrocity, every day on social media. We can turn it off, or we can watch it, or we can feel guilty about not watching it, we can feel guilty about watching it. I feel different every day. And the same with the way that the imagery of refugees and suffering is narrated by people who control mainstream media, for example, the images that we see. So I suppose my question is, how do we, as the viewer, read and interpret and indeed ethically look at some of the things that come to us without us being, without us going looking for it, because it's ever present in our pockets. Thank you.
I don't know that I'm going to answer the question, but I'm going to maybe complicate it because there's also the not recent invention, but the recent obsessive use of AI, and so there's beyond the question of sort of ethical responsibility in looking at an image. There's also the question of what is real at this point, which is I don't know. I mean, I'm teaching in a photography program, so this is at the height of every conversation in class. Thankfully, most students seem to be very against it at the moment. But I think the way you're bringing a very thoughtful question with the context of having read Susan Sontag, with the context of having read Walter Benjamin, so you're coming with a criticality that one would hope we all have, but not everyone is going to have that sort of educational background. So I'm not answering it, it's complicating.
Also, I want to complicate it. And I had some, Susan Sontag, obviously I've been thinking about her, and I don't want to start quoting because I'm not like this. But another element that I was listening yesterday on the way here from one of the persons that was released from the prison, from the flotilla that was going to Gaza, and he mentioned, and it stayed in my mind, that it's actually the first time in history where we are watching a genocide in real time through Instagram, and it's like watching, Big Brother, but a genocide. And it's so we are in a very interesting and cruel and, I think it's a very special time, and it's questions that are, I don't know how to answer. I think there's a lot of responsibility in the way we create images, what we show, and what we see, and how.
During my research, I've been analyzing a lot of mainstream images of migration, and many of them were, that's the debate of Jacques Rivette, they were beautiful images, but they were a bit decorative, and they were objectifying the people. So does this mean that if it's an ugly topic, I'm talking very raw, but does it mean because it's an ugly topic, the images would be ugly? But on the other hand, when I see your film, when I see the film of Jean-Baptiste Bonnet, Several Souls, they are gorgeous films, and though the topic is very difficult, and so you understand where do we put the line between if we want to make something that is still art and still beautiful for the eyes, but still addressing something very hard. And I believe this by involving ourselves, and then it raises the question of the appropriation and the positionality, the position. Yeah, it's complex debate, but one key for me is by delving into it, as you mentioned.
Just to respond to that, I feel like aesthetics is like it's a tool that we have. Like to create a beautiful image or experience is a means to get people to pay attention. So if we're reproducing the ugly reality is maybe more putting up a wall than opening dialogue.
Becky?
Okay. I'm essentially agreeing with everyone's been saying, and again, to kind of complicate the question a bit more, And to build off of what Hara was saying about Gaza and the sort of live stream of genocide happening, I was thinking about Ariel Aisha's Azule's book, Potential History, where she goes and sort of questions, coming from an art history background and photography and looking at sort of the archive and going back and sort of refusing the sort of narrative that's attached to the image and trying to contact. She uses an image from the beginning of the Nakba, where there's this enforced migration, and there's an image of a man who is on his knees, and she sees this as a refusal to become a refugee, a refusal to become an immigrant, and to sort of like kind of reimagine the archive in a way, but it goes deeper than that. But I think, it's, so I just wanted to put that out there as well, where I think that there's the kind of context of the image and how we see the image becomes really important into this conversation as well.
Yeah, I'll try to answer maybe in two parts concerning the work project Frontières Fluides. The part that I didn't show is, as I said, a huge video archive with a lot of fragments of shared stories, and maybe that's part of an answer. What we tried to do within this project was that we built a kind of, well, that would go too far, but we built a kind of site-specific boat-like installation in very different places, and we expose ourselves with that work, weird work that we are doing there when no artists usually work, and we are not looking for somebody or we are not trying to interview. We do and work until people around us want to come, want to join, want to discuss with us, and want to share also. So that was really important for us because, for example, this project was really very often we were invited by community, like by cities or municipalities, saying like, we have a refugee camp. Can you please come and make a cultural project? And we don't do this because we really the least thing that we could do in this. It will be as an asymmetric position anyway. So the least thing that we try to do is to put ourselves in a position where the other one can decide what to share and how to share and when to share. And also, of course, we had a huge responsibility because we had also to protect people because sometimes they told us things that were illegal and so on and so on. So we have off voices, and sometimes we even re-recorded fragments of the stories with different voices. You don't see people, you don't see faces, and so these were the choices that were really necessary for us in order to be available to, in order to be able somehow to work with this material of shared memory. And as an artist today, I will not repeat what you both said. The last work that you have seen, maybe that I said like, okay, maybe we'll talk about it later. Also the answer is I don't know. Really, I don't know. Especially in the situation today, I think maybe others are fast and clever. That's probably the case. But as an artist, I'm really, I have the impression, as an artist and as an educator, by the way, that I've been like running, catching up, trying to react to this like fast changing, of course, to the political situation, war and genocide, but also, of course, what happened in the States, what happened in Europe, and so on and so on. Like, this was so fast, and this brought so many changes in terms of, I don't even want to use the quality of image, but the level of violence that was accessible and shared, and the fact of being able to see it and still it's happening. And I mean, I was not able to develop tools, artistic tools, intellectual tools that fast, and I have really now very much I felt that I really have to can't go from reacting and trying to catch up with all the atrocities that like just come in each day, to put myself or ourselves as an artist again in a situation where we can not be ahead of time or something, but to open something, to create something, to offer something, and instead of just like trying to juggle with all these catastrophes that coming in. And so in a way, also this kind of not having an answer, maybe this is a part of not having an answer as an artist, because I was doing I worked a lot about trying to find a way as an artist to respond to these images, and I was not able to find it, and I'm still not able to. And so I started to make a whole series of textile works that are on one hand sometimes like this, like almost like kind of like as if works would be hidden in museums when when people are moving and they put blankets on their furniture in order to get it dusty and so on. But of course it's also shrouds, and so I worked a lot. Well, somehow it made me come back to painting, maybe, who knows, the least thing I expected. Anyway, it's really, I tried to work, to go back, as representation was impossible and still is. And I tried to go as close as to the body as possible, and I tried to find, images I try to find images or to create images that are somewhere between maybe skin, maybe lost body liquids, maybe the traces on shorts, maybe whatever, but really to try to go back to what we are made of. And so this was really like the micro, so like I'm trying to, from the micro level, maybe to go back to another kind of image representation. A long answer for saying that I don't have an answer. I'm sorry.
Thank you all so much. We have one last question, please.
Hello, am I audible? Yes, so thanks to all of you, but I just wanted to shift the focus of your discussion a little bit from creation to dissemination. And one of my questions is that how do all of you actually disseminate these texts, images to the spaces of the global south, right? Because I mean, a lot of the discussions, and especially the artwork, as I see them, and as someone who teaches fairly lower middle class, working class South Asian students in a university in South Asia, all of whom actually at some point want to migrate to Europe. I love them, but I don't see any of them making any sense to any of them, right? So what does it actually mean to have this conversation stuck within Europe, to actually treat it as a crisis, and to kind of think that the global south somehow doesn't agree and the bodies are coming into Europe and all we can do is to sort of rescue them, forgetting that there are a whole lot of other issues which are creating the problems there. So that way it becomes that yes, we create the problems and we solve the problems, right? And somehow artists and writers, and we all of us and scholars scholars to become kind of blessed within those self-serving circuits of representation. So have you actually thought about addressing dissemination, and how would they be read by the kind of the people you are making them for, the potential migrants? Thank you.
Wow. So we are running a little bit behind on time, so that's a great question.
Yeah, I'll try to make it quick. Well, the quickest would be, you're totally right. I totally agree with you. A small, I'm sorry, I can't see you, but yeah, okay, yeah. So it's better to have a very, okay. Yeah, so I mean, I can, as a kind of, well, I don't even, again, I could say in order to defend my position, but I really don't want it, because I think I share really the same, I think agree, I agree that, yeah, I agree. I can say that the project that I was referring to is a project that started in Northern African and African spaces, and still is working there, and it's a project that is really far from art institutions and places, and the people we've been working with, I don't even know if at the end of the day, well, of course they know what we were doing and that we are artists, but we were really, for us it was really crucial to go and to work in these spaces, and that it makes sense in these spaces. Of course, I can now say that it worked, but you have, I'm here today and not, for example, Rashid, who would be some of the protagonists in our videos, and probably I agree that maybe Rashid should be here instead of me, so that's really a point where I totally agree. And I also agree with the panel. I mean, I've been looking around also this morning, and I thought, like, okay, that's not the first time, it's not going to be the last time. In the end, I think there are other people who should replace me here, and it would make more sense that they are here than I am here, and the fact that I am here is related to power structures that we keep, that are maintained basically in institutions in Europe. And so, yeah, I can just tell you that in my work, I really, as a traveling European artist, for me, it's really the premise to, if the work doesn't function in another context, then, and also with a public that is not a so-called art or academic public, then I have to go back home and do it again and make it work until it works. So for me, that's for sure. And yeah, and for the institutions, I think there's a lot of work to do, and I cannot more than agree with you.
Thank you very much, everyone. We would love to have...
One very short mention, Elsa. Either I missed it or you didn't mention your newsletter. So Elsa has, is running a newsletter, New Imaginaries of Migration, and it's all about changing the perspective and changing the gaze on migration. So if you're interested, you've got her, email address, doing my job. So
yeah, but I feel super frustrated not to answer your question.
Over coffee.
Sorry. We will continue the conversation over coffee, but thank you so much for everyone for the roundtable, and thank you all for joining us.